right, that was just amazing, amazing, amazing as usual. And sorry to keep you, Dr. Reggie Reddy, and also Sister Diptiben. I think you can see we're running a little bit over, but I just felt that I couldn't, interrupt. We needed to know the 5 stages. We needed to know about the death aspect. We needed to know all of this. So the universe works in really great ways to bless us with exactly the tools we need at the specific moment. So I'm really grateful for Errol's presentation. And, I think I'll do the downloads in sections again, which is smaller, so that we can, easy to maneuver in between the different presentations. We have a very, very special guest now, Dr. Reggie Reddy, highly esteemed, very well sought after in the dentistry world. And again, Dr. Reddy and I go back really, really a long way, and we just, we were soul friends right from the beginning as well. And what a gentle nature and what a beautiful person. And, he keeps up with all the latest medical conferences, dentistry conferences, and, really brings an enlightened work to the world. And especially, I just like him because he doesn't hurt. I don't get pain when I go there. So, Dr. Reddy, I'm going to, if you want to turn your video on, we can bring you through. Dr. Reddy? Oh, there you are. Oh, thank you, thank you. I think that's just beautiful. Wow. Good evening and welcome to the Turning Point event. We're looking at transformation, and we are waiting with bated breath to speak to you about, proper oxygenation of the body. And there's no better person than yourself. Over to you, Dr. Reddy.
Thank you very much, Jane. Thank you for the audience and the opportunity to share this wonderful platform. And I think that Errol has set the tone and of where we are, where we're going with, with the life and this present, the future. And reminds me of a wonderful quote that, man is yet to be unmade and remade, and replaces the ego with a transcendental consciousness. Right? So I think Errol has set the tone for that. And the sooner we shed our ego and we have the transcendental consciousness, we become in the world and we become more tuned to the universe. And the most important, we heal ourselves. We take responsibility for ourselves. And the only person can heal us is ourselves, nobody else. And what's the science behind it? You have a fracture of your hand, and when you're 5 years old, 15 or 50 years old, you heal from where? Within yourself. So you have that power, so nobody should take the power away from you. The power within you. And simultaneously is that who's breathing for yourself? It's a lot of the universe and you yourself. Right? So you got a partnership there. So if you want to shed your partnership and take responsibility for yourself, but you don't want to. So COVID has shown us here, guys, take responsibility for yourself and your self journey. Right? And
Dr. Reddy,
yes.
We've got a little bit of a sound issue because you're speaking such pearls of wisdom, and maybe if you get a bit closer to your microphone, it might help a little bit. I'm just trying to think, and also your picture is a little bit blurred. Is that normal? Your camera. Just speak a little bit.
Okay, can you hear me now, Jane?
Yeah, that sounds a lot better. A lot better.
Okay. I'm sorry. Okay. So I said in the first quote that managed to be unmade and remade, and releases ego with the transcendental consciousness. Right. So I think that's very profound in what Errol was saying. And we are,
Dr. Reddy, we're losing you.
You can do it by yourself.
Dr. Reddy, we're losing your profound information. Yes. We're losing you.
Can you hear me now, Jane? Hello, Jane? Can you hear me? Hello, Jane?
Okay, Dr. Reddy, I can hear you. Do you think you can start again?
Yes, yes, sure, absolutely. Can you now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, I was saying that I have a quote from a famous philosopher that says that in this journey of light, man is to be unmade and remade, and replaces ego with the transcendental consciousness. And during this time of COVID here, and the only most profound thing in this lifestyle what we're living is our breath and breath control. And COVID has shown that without your breath and without the percentage of oxygenation and carbon dioxide and nitric oxide, you can exist. But where's it coming from? All within yourself. Okay, Jane, can you hear me clearly?
Already, I
Fine.
can hear you.
Yeah,
We can hear you perfectly. Yeah.
wonderful. Yeah, right. Okay, let's go into the slides, and then we can pick up on the slides, and then we could talk through each slide and share with you some profound information. Okay, I've got here is about my functional dentistry, and this is what I specialize in for the last 17 years. I've been studying this carefully, and my functional dentistry is based on breath and breath control. And the fundamental aspect of myo is muscle and is the function of the muscle. But before the function of the muscle, you need a breathing program in order for the muscle to function, and in order to get the correct function. It's based on the science of creation. In birth, the first thing you see in birth is a soft tissue. They see the hard tissue. So when the breath comes into a soft tissue, get the function correct, then the hard tissue follows. Okay, this is a little about my background, to where I'm from and whatever I do, and just to tell you that who I am and where I'm. But I'm a South African and born in Durban and living in an area called Springs, and ancestral in the roots of India, and that's where I'm from. Okay, and these are the organizations that I belong to, and I develop a relationship worldwide, internationally, with the area of people, and everybody's on the same pathway as Jane and Errol, and about what we do and how we do things. It's about an integrated fraternity of health practitioners, and Jane is part of this. Okay, let's talk about this, right? In terms of by nature we have two passages of breath control, and the first one that the breath control the lungs. One is the nose, as we all know. The second is the mouth, and it's often ignored that about the mouth breathing significance. Healthy people breathe through the nose, right, and so-called and the mouth, but the people who are not so healthy, unfortunately, tend to breathe to the mouth. And mouth breathing, there's some science to say that babies who are born through C-section births are more prone to mouth breathing than nasal breathing. Right? As a result of that, the pH changes from an alkaline to an acidic state. So it's important to understand that some of the symptoms that go with so-called mouth breathing, right? So I think it's critical to know that in normal mouth breathing you have what you call the stress-driven level. For example, people who run about, and people who tend to have strenuous exercises. So I think it's important to understand that you need more nasal breathing than mouth breathing. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight, how to get you to breathe more through the nose and less through the mouth, and how it can affect your whole body constituents and how it affects your whole healthy patterns. So I've got a slide here is about nasal congestion, and we all know that during nasal congestion, we have a flu or influenza allergies. You tend to automatically, it's a compensatory effect that you tend to breathe to the mouth, but that's not your natural process. Right? The natural process is always to breathe to your nose. Okay, what is the evidence base in my practice in terms of mouth breathing? It's amazing that I'll share some videos with Jane later, and which you can send it to everybody. That it's found that mouth breathing causes deformation of teeth and jaw pattern, jaw relationship in children especially, right? And some of the conditions that it affects you in gum and bone diseases in the mouth. And this is what mouth breathing does. So this is why during COVID time, it's important that when you put your mask on, to ensure that you breathe more silently to the nose than the mouth. Otherwise, you have a reverse flow of a negative oxygenation process, whereby you need more carbon dioxide. These are the references that people have been working with all along the world. Professor Leverini in Italy, Professor Barry Rafael in the US, Professor Germán Ramirez in Canada, Derek Mahoney in Australia, and recently John Nestor has written a book called Breathing. And someone can get onto the book, it'll be fantastic. And Stephen Lin has written a book on diet and health. I'm just going to talk about a little bit now about the natural form of nostril breathing. Right? We all know during that when you have a consistent bad cold or a blocked nose, can reduce the quality of life and affect the ability to sleep well and general function. So that alone tells you that when you breathe, that the mouth and nose is blocked, so you don't feel so healthy. The nose produces an important aspect called nitric oxide, which improves the lung ability to absorb oxygen. Therefore, it's important to understand that why you need to have this nasal breathing to retain the oxygen.
This is, I think, an absolutely vital, Dr. Reddy, this is a vital point that you're just speaking about right now.
Yes,
about
yes.
the body's ability to use the oxygen. We need to breathe through the nose.
Yes, and it's critical, you know. So because the nitric oxide in the ability to transport oxygen to the body, if you don't know and where the nitric oxide vehicle is going, so the nitric oxide is subdued, hence that your oxygen transport to the vessels and to the lymph drainage and artery veins is subjugated. So the important thing about nitric oxide to understand that it is also an antifungal, antiviral, and antiparasitic and antibacterial agent. It improves your immune system to fight infection. So that's the reason why nasal breathing is so critical. But also it's important to understand that we need a percentage of oxygen, we need a percentage of dioxide, and to survive. Dr. John Wolfe in the 80s wrote an influential paper on the subject of a mixture of oxygen and carbon dioxide blended for anxiety.
Another very important point, Dr. Reddy. This is another very important point. Yes. Why are we seeing so much anxiety? Why are we seeing so much depression? I mean, you know, this is because the percentages are mixed up. We're not producing the nitrous oxide. On top of all of that, we've got mycoplasma and particulate matter and silicosis and asbestos and diphtheria vaccination, everything, you know, accumulating in the lungs. And we've got this on top of it.
Yes, it's common. And one needs to understand is that people on ventilators are not surviving. Let's understand that first, right? Because your lung is like a balloon, and you're pumping the body with oxygen, and you're not allowing the carbon dioxide percentage in the body to be retained. And neither you've got nitric oxide that filters to the nose to keep oxygenation in. So your elasticity of your lung tissue is lost like a balloon, and then eventually your lung tissues collapse, right? When you don't have oxygenation, and then you have a heart attack, and people die of heart attacks, right? So this is right. Sorry.
What I was saying is, Dr. Reddy, this is exactly what we're seeing. This is exactly the play out as you watch the the symptoms and the complications develop in people in hospital.
Yes. It's critical, right? And to understand that the absorption is a critical factor. If you don't have nitric oxide, you have all the oxygen it is a problem because you're not absorbing to the system, right? So technically, that the oxygen is not serving its purpose, right? So the advantage of nasal breathing, to understand that the nose acts as a filter and retains small particles in the air, including pollen. So the filtration system is critical, and only through the nasal passage to normal nose breathing that has a quality. And the most important thing is that the nose and the nostrils add moisture to the air, to prevent dryness in the lungs and bronchial tubes. And mouth breathing doesn't have that capacity to moisten the air. And this is the reason why people tend to have a dryness of a cough, and in the pharyngeal opening affects your bronchi and your alveoli. Right? So the important thing to understand that the nostril warms the air, to prepares the airflow to keep your temperatures optimal to 36 and 37 degrees. Right? So the nasal breathing, nose breathing adds resistance to the airstream. This increases the oxygen uptake by maintaining the lungs elasticity. And this is what you don't have in ventilators. Right? In ventilators, and the lung elasticity is not maintained. It's actually diffused. Right? And you lose elasticity, and you lose the tonicity of the lungs. And this is why people don't recover, in terms of lung compliance. So the ancient highway of integration of called ancient Ayurvedic texts into pranayama in dental medicine and general medicine is absolutely vital. What we call is alternative nostril breathing. Right? If everybody can practice that, I believe that you'll be healthy and on the journey to ensure proper nasal breathing. How do I know if I'm breathing through my mouth? I think it's important to understand these kinds of things which we often ignore. You may not realize that you are breathing through your mouth instead of your nose, especially when you're sleeping. So people who breathe through the mouth at night may have the following symptoms. If they're snoring, they tend to have a bad breath, and they're often tired in the morning, irritable, and that's what you call is brain fog. And when they have a dryness of the mouth, hoarseness of the voice, they have to have fatigueness, and they have what you call darkness, dark circles around your eyes. Right? These are the classical signs and symptoms which anybody can elicit as a lay person. We often should be very vigilant when we have young children in the houses to monitor and observe children, how to address these issues at a young age. A child will not be able to communicate the symptoms like adults. Children of mouth breathe will breathe with the mouth open and snore at night. So you shouldn't dispense with that, but observe that, and how can you necessarily intervene at a young age, which is critical. So children who breathe with the mouth for most of the day may also have the following symptoms. They have a slower growth rate, right? Whether it's to the brain or general body growth factors. They have crying episodes at night. They have large tonsils and daytime sleepiness. And combined with irritability and problems with concentration, dry cracks, and nasal congestion. I will talk a little bit now of how, just now on the following slide, about mouth breathing and problems of concentration, which are wrongly classified as ADD and ADHD, and they've been given all the so-called drugs like Ritalin and which shouldn't be. And we need to understand that why is mouth breathing to be corrected. So I wouldn't be too technical here. There are a range of appliances to be used for mouth breathing to be corrected. And one of the things we use in our practice is what you call is myofunctional appliance. Myo is muscle and function, to get the muscles right of the lips, tongue, swallowing, and the nasal breathing that affects your lung compliance, which I think is important. Right? So this system that I use always involves the evaluation of breathing as a priority, the first treatment goal for the last 30 years. So it's not something new, but it's information that is subjugated and often in the back burner. And the American Association of Orthodontics and the World Dental Federation have recommended every child need to be screened for stimulated breathing disorder by dentists and orthodontists, and this can be achieved by myofunctional orthodontic. I spoke earlier on about mouth breathing and ADHD and ADD. So if you have a child who suffers with ADHD and attention deficit syndrome, then you know very well that some of the behaviors that come with this developmental disorder, thankfully, with the MyBridge treatment plan intervention system, it balances the condition of the individual and minimize level of anxiety. So children who are mouth breathers are very anxious, and they have the problem of concentration, they have incomplete tasks, and the quality of forgetfulness. But it doesn't mean we need to turn to drugs, right? Like Ritalin and Concerta. So by treating it holistically and integratively, and by getting our oxygenation and the breath control, the percentage of carbon dioxide, nitric oxide, it can be reversed. Obviously, there's dietary factors and there's some supplements there which Jane can guide you on in terms of foods that promotes sustainable oxygenation uptake. Right. So yeah, I'm sure the slide is clear. You can see the clinical features of mouth breathing and nasal breathers, and how in nasal breathers it's all in natural form, and you can see what happens in mouth breathers. They tend to have an recessed chin, they have a more pointed nose, they have a flattened face, and the neck comes more forward, and they have rounded shoulders, right, and they have posture discrepancy. These are the clinical features that you can see children that who are mouth breathers or nasal breathers.
So, Dr. Reddy, can I just ask you a question? You mentioned one of the causes of mouth breathing being a C-section birth, but what else causes mouth breathing?
Jean, one is the allergic reactions, right? And also the dietary factors. How I'll show you in a slide just now coming up how diet affects the mouth breathing, and we could delve into shortly. And diet is a critical factor that affects liver function, which is triglycerides. I'll talk about it just now.
Okay, fine, perfect, thanks.
Okay, yeah. So I spoke about how does myofunctional appliance treatment works. One of the specific signs symptoms are identified. The part establish a better airway function by opening up the airway day and night, which allows a subsequent effect of transition the child from mouth to nasal breathing. So basically, what appliance therapy does, it tightens the opening into your pharyngeal opening to your lungs, and make sure the airway flow from your into the nose and flows directly into your pharynx, then into your lungs. Right? So this is just an appliances that we use to show you what can be done from a dental perspective to help with a better function of the airway, so the child can breathe without restriction. And we had some success in our practice for the last 11 to 15 years in this. Right? So the correction of mouth breathing is a fundamental step in the myofunctional treatment process. So I said to you earlier in the slide, the mouth breathing causes crooked teeth and cause gum disease. So it's important to understand that you have to correct the mouth breathing as the first stage in any treatment. That's why 82.2% of cases that would fix orthodontics always have relapses. If children show signs of medical conditions as breathing disorder, sleep, the priority is to establish functional airway first. Airway function is the fundamental thing which is often ignored by medical practitioners. So the appliance, as I said, is designed for use to positive signs of sleep disorders or myofunctional alternate evaluation. Obstruction of the airways is by CBCT, X-rays, and ENT evaluation, and designed for children from a classification perspective of medical science, grade 2 and 3 tonsils, parents who prefer not to have ENT intervention, and children who cannot keep the K1 appliance at night while they sleep. Therefore, we intervene mechanically. So here I was coming to the issue what Jane mentioned about what are the other causes of mouth breathing. So mouth breathing and insulin resistance, there's evidence to show the correlation between the two. So insulin effects on growth hormones resulting in hyperthyroidism, dementia, and inflammation. So how does it affect in terms of the aspect of the mouth breathing? So this aspect causes the liver function to be affected. How does it happen? So people who are on a high carbohydrate diet affect the ectopic deposition of triglycerides on muscular tissue. And one of the muscles that tends to affect is the tongue. So the triglycerides increases glycogen deposits that increase the size of the liver. And that liver function affects deposition of triglycerides in terms of the area like the tongue. So the tongue sizes, the diameter of the tongue changes and increases. When that change increases, you become more of a mouth breather than a nasal breather, right? Because what really happens is that, so because the tongue tends to clog up the oropharynx. Oropharynx goes into your lung tissue. So as a result of that, because the size of the tongue is too big, and then you tend to push your tongue outwards. When you do that, and almost like you constantly keep your mouth open to breathe. So this is what happens, the compensatory factor that takes place. That's why it makes your facial features change, it makes your teeth change and become crooked. So these are all changes we see as dentists in practice and ENT surgeons. So the autopharynx is always the inflammatory response. The tongue size increases. Like tongue size increases, and large tongue increases the effect of the mouth breathing, because the autopharynx is blocked. That from the nasal passage goes into your lungs. So as a result of this, you become more a mouth breather because there's no airflow from the nasal autopharynx. I mentioned earlier about diet. So why diet is important? You see on the left-hand side is about all the high carbohydrates. On the right-hand side is about the decreased carbohydrates, because the carbohydrates affects an acidic reaction. Acidic reaction causes carbon dioxide retention. The carbon dioxide retention causes sodium potassium pump in your heart rate to get affected. When that happens, it affects your lung compliance. Initial alveoli open every 4.5 seconds. Every 1.5 seconds opens every 4.5 seconds. There's a delayed reaction. And then that's compensated by the mouth breathing. So how diet affects your mouth breathing, right? Jane, you want to say something,
Dr. Reddy, yeah, I do. I mean, this sodium potassium pump, I mean, when you first educated me on that, and I see it all the time on the quantum device, because we get the minerals, and it goes calcium, magnesium, sodium chloride, and potassium. So we see that whole we see those mineral values. And Dr. Reddy, you will find that what I'm finding with the sodium potassium pump, where there's a big gap between the sodium reading and the potassium reading, and on top of it, a very low reading for chlorine, then I know for sure that that person is not digesting properly, because they don't have enough hydrochloric acid in here, and they're not breathing out. They're not getting the carbon dioxide out, and they are acidic in the limbs and they are alkaline in the stomach. And that to me is an absolute marker of this degeneration that you're speaking about right now.
Yeah. Jean, just to highlight what you just said now, the science says that you should breathe in for 5.5 seconds, you should retain your breath for 5.5 seconds, and exhale for 5.5 seconds.
Yeah.
Right. So actually, it means that technically you should breathe out. You should breathe less, and in terms of exhalation. So the more silent you breathe, the more profound. So what's the evidence based in society? People who climb the mountains, like Kills mountain peaks in the Himalayas, and people who do diving, they're able to retain the breath maximally by breathing totally in harmony, right? And we know that for a fact that if you breathe too quickly, as the rabbits, like the dogs, your lifespan decreases. If you increase your lifespan, so basically if you breathe less, that means less stress, less panic attacks. And during this COVID time, we need to be absolutely calm more and more and more.
Absolutely. And I think you're going to get to it, but the most important thing, and I'll speak about it a little bit later, if you don't breathe this carbon dioxide out, which is hugely acid forming in the body, you will just start degenerating, and you will get all these backward, I'll call it like a backward degeneration in the body, like you've said, the bones, the blood sugar, circulation, metabolic shutdown.
Yeah, I just want to highlight the thing about fear. When you have fear, right, your breathing is arrhythmic.
Yes.
Right, and your heart rate is not totally in balance. So when your heart rate is not in balance, there's your sodium potassium pump, a biochemical effect, right? So opening of your valve are irregular, right, and it has a cascading effect. So fear and affects your synapses, what you call your neuron and dendron, your chemical structure. So fear causes a lot of your neurological system is affected, your heart rate is affected, your lung compliance is affected. Fear is thing. So the biggest thing we've got challenge here, we have to believe in this uncertainty principle. Errol mentioned about the darkness in this age, right? So how do we be out of the darkness? By seeing the glimmer of light. The glimmer of light is the two aspects of healing we know. One is the physical healing, one is the astral healing. Astral healing comes from your intuition. So you need to build up your intuition more and more to know that you will through this how was outside there. So do not get camouflage with vaccines, no vaccines, all this kind of thing of the world that hyped up in the world, right? So we all know, the scientists know that it takes 5 years if you want a vaccine to work, efficacy to 75 to 85%, right? Even then, we know if you take a flu vaccine, you often get a flu still, right? So I mean, let's not fool ourselves. The vaccine is not the insurance. The insurance is yourself. Right? When you do this time of reflection within yourself, build up your self-confidence to know that, right? Not by this fear. So fear can all become by your own faith in yourself to know that you and the divine above will take you through. You know, and we have this whole aspect of the hype being created by dying. You must wrap them up in polythene bags, you know. So today the Potter of Hell said, no, that should not be followed. So all this was created with fear syndromes. You know, do this, don't do that, you know. And so let's keep life simple and do the simple things, uncomplicated things, right? So if you calm and you're collective, you'll breathe rhythmically, the 5.5 seconds, which I think is critical in the way that we do.
So Dr. Reddy, if you are not breathing out the carbon dioxide and you're becoming acidic, don't you think just by nature you're going to open your mouth to get a bit more oxygen in? If let's take the fear example.
Yes.
You talked about fear now.
Yes.
Because when you're in fight or flight, you're breathing shallowly, but you do start panting. So the mouth is open.
Yes. Absolutely. Fear creates anxiety. Anxiety affects your biological nature. And we know from biophysics, right? So we got your in your mitochondria, your KLMM shells, 18 electrons. So when you got a fear syndrome, the electronic structure in your cell is altered. So your neurons, the protons in your atomic structure is altered, right? So you're totally off balance. So biochemically and biophysically, right? And so the more you let go in life, the more that you become lighter, and you have to trust yourself and nobody else.
Beautiful.
You know?
Makes perfect sense. As you say, the more simple, the better. Yes.
And I think that people need to realize this is about a lifestyle change, about resetting your button and realizing that life can never be the same. And all the paraphernalia of the big funerals, of the big whatever, is showing us all that's not necessary.
Yeah.
Right? Right. And it's showing. So just to summarize what I spoke about today, rules of the diet, understanding of the lung compliance, understanding of the cardiovascular relevance, and understanding that the dentist has got a big role to play in helping you to understand mouth breathing and lung compliance. Right? And these are some of the examples of general diagnostic markers. Right? What is the health of your teeth and gums may lead to problems like diabetes and Alzheimer's. Right? So diabetes are modern-day disease conditions, right? But you have the power to control it, the power to, by a healthy lifestyle, natural medicaments, without getting you so-called controlled and of this aggressive fraternity of pumping with drugs. Right? And Dr. Lynn, I alluded to the fact that if you get a healthy mouth, you have a healthy body. Simple as that. The future of medicine is interconnected. Body is missionary. Body, it cannot be. The dentist is separate. The pharmacologists are all one. We are segmented. The sooner we figure our segmentation, realize we are integrated together, we will live a more healthier life. Now, this should touch on something very important, right? The understanding of the oral microbiome to overall health. So we know that the modern day gynecologists, what they're doing in a C-section baby, so they do what they call is vaginal swabs. They take the swab from the vagina and they put in the tongue. Science is showing us the efficacy of that in terms of the restoring the microbiome is 35% conventional birth. And that decreases every 10 years by 3%. Eventually, you become a zero commodity to incorporate the microbiome in your system. Therefore, what Janie is doing in terms of providing with almost and these kinds of things, restore your microbiomes in your gut, and that is a critical thing. Right? So breathing illustrates the extraordinary act of breathing, and it depends on what it is and what we have witnessed COVID-19. Without breathing, we
Dr. Reddy, just before you go on there, what you and I have spoken about many times as well are these old silver amalgam fillings, and every time you bite, there's this release of pathogenic material that goes into the gut and interferes again with the microbiome. Could you comment on that?
Yes, absolutely. The thing is we need to understand that the old silver filling got it's a conglomeration of metals, and the only thing that holds it into place is mercury. We all know, and what else is mercury? In seeds, right? Just to give you an idea. So the mercury is fluid state. So over the period of time, the mercury exudes out of the teeth surfaces and creates expansion. And this is you have spaces between the openings and the tooth, and food particles get stuck in there. Bacteria proliferates and regurgitates, and then at a certain critical mass, it goes into your gut system, right? And so that's the effects of mercury and the bacterial affects your microbiomes in your gut. So that's the reason why, if you remove your old mercury filling, there's a methodology how to do things. Right? Weaning of the latent toxins, and the thing of things besides juice therapies. And Jane can talk to you more about that, about how she helps to remove the mercury markers, and by using the skio measurements, and she can on the skio she can be able to tell you very clearly.
Yeah, and we use, obviously lots of oxygen. So just a story for everyone as well. And this is a client that came and unfortunately passed. So he came already in 4th stage throat cancer. It was really huge. It was sticking out like this, okay, already in a wheelchair. And part of my questioning is, have you had any root canal treatments? And he said immediately, yes. So I said, oh, okay, well, where was it? So it was literally above where this huge growth was, all right? But in the lower jaw, but above where this huge growth was. And I said to him, but did anybody ever speak to you about this root canal and having a look at it? He said, yes, they told me to leave everything alone. And quite frankly, because I've actually even seen a mouth infection, a filling that's gone septic, root canal or whatever, I think was a root canal. I've actually seen from another medical doctor, there was a trace of the cancer going right into the breast as well, causing breast cancer. So this root canal was dripping and causing and creating this cancer form, this huge mass in this person. And instead of going to a biological dentist like yourself and getting to the pun intended here, the root cause of this cancer, they told him to actually leave his teeth alone. And I mean, it could have been saved.
Sure. Yeah, I mean that's the gravitation, the problems that is poorly diagnosed or undiagnosed cases,
Very serious.
Yeah, and this is why an integrated medicine is so critical at this point in time, where you should know everything together, which is important. Yeah.
There's a question here, Dr. Reddy. What is bruxism? Bruxism. Bruxism. Bruxism.
Yeah. Bruxism is the people who grind the teeth. That's one, and they have web facets in the teeth, and then affects the temporomandibular joint on either side of your face, and you tend to bite downwards and forwards. And some of the causes are, one is trauma, second thing is commonly is about stress-driven effects, and thirdly is about if you have lots of crowns and root canals in the mouth, and you tend to bite differently and occlude your teeth differently. So there's multiple causes, but stress-driven effects, and people who have had traditional mechanical aggressive fixed orthodontics. So that's what's but it has to be arrested and managed correctly. There's a protocol, correct history taking, diagnostics, and then manage it. Just not putting a bite plate on, just as one-off thing. It's not like that. I mean, just as a matter of,
and as you say, I mean, check on the fear and check on the emotions, and often these are all symptoms of deeper emotional, neurological, spiritual issues.
Yes, absolutely. It has to be an integrated approach, Jane. You can't do it linearly. I mean, it has to be done together in terms of correct understanding. See, execution is always easy, right? And this is why these days, to reduce infections in the mouth and root canal, we tend to use more laser treatment and natural intervention than more aggressive treatment.
Well, there's lots and lots and lots of stories, and I think we should pick up on the importance of this, because it's really so important that we really get the importance of breathing. And I mean, when you think about it, in 2021, here we are actually re-educating people on how to breathe. I mean, it's the first thing we do when we're born, and it's the last thing we do when we leave the physical plane. And I mean, to be having to even have a debate like this, and it's actually chronic, I think, that we've got to this point. But as you pointed out, it's diet, it's emotional, it's birth, it's all these things put into the pot. And the biggest thing we're seeing with proper breathing, it keeps the body alkaline. And our pH must be 7.4, because this is the most important thing going forward. If we want to get to a point where, I'm just going to share we've got Diptiben waiting. We're coming to you, Dipti. This is the most important thing, because the people I'm seeing, right, 6 out of 7 of them have got a flat battery. In other words, the adrenal is shot. The adrenal gland is shot. There's mounds of adrenaline floating around, mounds of cortisol getting released on a daily basis, hitting on the cell on 24/7. The body in a fight or flight situation all the time. The immune system reducing, and the immunity, getting less and less. And most importantly is the cell vitality. And we've spoken about this so many times. And the charge around every cell should be minus 90 millivolts. And if it's below 70 or above 120, we have big problems, because this relates to the insulin shutdown and metabolic syndrome, and not allowing oxygen in and not allowing food to go through. And then obviously without the oxygen in the cell, it's not binding with the electrons and forming the ATP and giving us energy. It's not releasing waste either. So it's just bulging and eventually bursting. So I just can't really stress enough the importance of a proper breath. And and Dipti's going to talk about this too, and she's going to overlay some more overlays of the overlays. But there's a very deep reason for this breathing properly, to prevent this degeneration, because the first thing is acidity. Once we're acidic, the calcium doesn't go back into the bones, because it's trying to keep the blood at 7.4. If it's not 7.4, we literally die. It's as simple as that. The blood pH has to be 7.4. And then you start getting the parasites growing and the body not able to detoxify properly. So the toxins start then accumulating. And then you start getting degeneration of cells and tissues. So we want to actually prevent this. And along with all of that becomes the brain fog, the memory loss, the lack of willpower, because the more stressed you are and the more cortisol you're producing, the more you're using progesterone, the more you're using thyroid hormone, the more you're using dopamine, and then your will to do things just flattens. So you just don't get there. And that's that stuckness we were talking about regarding Errol. It's not a conscious thing. You just downward spiral, and your body resonance and your energy is just downward spiral. So we've got to look at ways to breathe properly and do all the wonderful things that Dr. Reddy shared with us, which is just gold. And knowing that we've got this abundance of energy ahead of us regarding Aquarius and those kind of things, and understanding our body, that it's a living, breathing organism. And as Dr. Reddy says, it's living symbiotically in a quantum space, interrelated, integrated with everything. And no one thing is in isolation of another. And to get this wheel moving in perfect harmony, it's physical, it's neurological, it's emotional, and spiritual as well. And so many diseases and discomforts and fear and panic attacks and depression can be avoided by getting the breath in. It's such a simple thing. And people don't do the diaphragm breathing. We do these tests. I do assessments every day, as you know, and we go into also whole food emporiums and health pharmacies and stuff, and we're doing tests. It's absolutely shocking, everybody, because in the red, people are in hypoxic states. They're completely masked off. They won't remove it. They're in fear. They're breathing up and down here. And in that fight or flight situation, and literally the cell vitality is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and we're just getting metabolic shutdown and one disease and degeneration after another. So like Errol was saying, I think it was, we need to educate people. We really do need to. If we've got this knowledge, I mean, ignorance is one thing, but knowledge is, I think we do have this duty to take this knowledge, have your own little webinars and take the information and share, because that's how we're going to then raise the total vibration of humanity and obviously the planet at the same time. And, we're going to talk to Dipti in a moment, and we're going to talk about, consciousness and food as consciousness. And in addition to that, how we can also shift certain dietary things and eat those foods that actually activate the oxygen in our body. So one of the things we spoke about, and I'm going to also, as I said in the beginning, I'm going to put the link to the presentation yesterday, where I literally went through the various foods and how they bring oxygen into the body. So I do urge you all to go and have a look at that. But just some of the things, and Dipti's going to speak about this as well, but this is a supercell oxygen activator, Dr. Reddy, and it's got cordyceps, it's got bee pollen, it's got Siberian ginseng and turmeric, and all the high ORAC value foods in it. And these are oxygen carrying capacity foods, but they also activate oxygen within the body. So people with lung disorders and athletes especially love the supercell oxygen activator, because it's actually assisting the body assimilate oxygen. And it's the nature of these adaptogenic herbs and superfoods. So we already have this, all right, in the universal pharmacy, in nature's pharmacy. We have it. It's nature made. It's completely natural. And what I'm suggesting, Dr. Reddy, is maybe we try a couple of your mouth breathers on some of these things, where we can accelerate from a bodily point of view the usage of oxygen. And so that's a herbal thing. We've also got the mineral oxygen, the straight cell oxygen, which is oxygen bound to magnesium, which splits off, and the oxygen then goes into the bloodstream from the intestines and then reaches the cell membrane. Oxygen is highly reactive, all right? It basically causes rust. And this is what we need sometimes to actually mop up the extreme amount of free radicals that are in our bodies from heated oil. Dr. Reddy talked about triglycerides. So you can see how all of this is tying together. Heated oil, that triglyceride is a free radical that is in the trans form, which is degenerative. It's cancer forming, whether we like it or not. So every bottle of oil that you buy that's heated, that doesn't say, for example, cold pressed. Okay, here we have cold pressed flaxseed oil. No heat, no light, and no air. You are then consuming a free radical that is going to damage the cells, the tissues, the bones, and everything. And therefore, when we bring in, well, there's two things. We can do antioxidants and we can do oxidants. When we bring an oxidant, like oxygen, we are going to go and scavenge all the free radicals on all these, the free electrons on all these free radicals, balance it all and eliminate it as quickly as possible. So here we are using oxygen to detoxify the body. Go outside, stand on the ground and do your breathing in the sunlight, preferably, to get that, you know, that really that reinvigoration, get the blood circulation, but more importantly, get this pure oxygen in. So we can get pure oxygen in. We can do it with, we can activate with herbs. We can bring in the mineral oxygen. We can also bring in cell vital oxyminerals, and this is a combination of products, and these two will form oxygen inside the body, and you basically steam clean. And the amount of peace, the amount of sleep, the amount of the reduction in anxiety and stress in somebody is unbelievable. It's visible, it's palpable, but you can see it in 12 hours, literally. And that is because they suddenly become clear of toxins. They suddenly become more alkaline, and they can start actually seeing clearly and you know, living productively and functionally. So we know this. It's not like we're talking something, you know, that's not known. We know about oxygen and we know what it does. So unfortunately, some people have degenerated to such a point, have got so many parasites, so many toxins, so much GMO in them, so much radiation in them, that we need the help of these agents in addition to our breathing. So it will never take away our breathing, but we can bring these things into to really raise that oxygen level. And it's too beautiful when we look on our devices and we see the cell vitality go from 1 out of 10 to 7, 8, or 9 out of 10. And then I know that we've charged that cell membrane properly. It's close to minus 90 millivolts. And I know that the oxygen is going in, connecting with those electrons, forming ATP in the mitochondria and the energy. We know that that's happening. And I know that I reversed that metabolic shutdown, with got to do with weight and blood sugar, blood circulation, bones, etc., that everything goes with that. So what I'm saying, I suppose in a nutshell, is that you can take as many nutrients as you want, as much vitamin D, as much vitamin A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J as you like, as many supplements you can lie on the table. You can take as much your nutrients as well. But if we don't have oxygen, those metabolic pathways are not going to happen. And we are not going to reach the conscious state that we want to reach. And it's going to be so difficult to achieve our purpose and be in the universal flow and connect beautifully with our creators. So we've been given oxygen, you know, it's just the most absolutely, we need to be hooked on oxygen. Yes, we do. And that will get us to our consciousness. It's unbelievably, this journey, when people detox with oxygen, it's actually, I ask them to get a book and journal, because it is such a transformative process. You actually feel your heart chakra opening. I'm not joking. And I know this because I've done it with other practitioners, and we kind of like nudging each other. Hey, is this happening to you? Is this happening to you? And then I witness it with the clients that are coming in. And if we have something like, also we can predict and pick up with Dr. Reddy and use the Myo brace at the same time as well, while we're re-educating the entire body on everything. I think we're pretty equipped. What do you say, Dr. Reddy?
Yes. It's a totally integrated approach, and definitely we alter the pH. And once you're in an alkaline state, 7.4, I mean, it's a winner, and there's no doubt about it. And with the correct uptake of oxygen, with the nitric oxide and nasal breathing, definitely you must be in a healthy state.
And then what I found as well is sometimes I would wake up, and we're bordering on what Dipti's going to be talking about. Sometimes I would wake up at night with the world falling in on me. This was a couple of years ago, and I would wonder, like, why? What happened? So some of it I could trace that I'd eaten wheat and so on, but it was the consciousness of the toxins inside me, be it parasite, be it GMO, be it heavy metals, the mercury you spoke about, the uranium. These things carry their own consciousness, and I've proved it on the device. When we remove all of that emotion that the people were holding onto, the fear that they were holding onto simply disappears. It's not there anymore. The panic attacks disappear. So I really think on a very simple level, we are really onto something here, and we really do, are able to manage all of this. And that oil, that flaxseed oil, it brings an enormous amount of energy into the body. The microbiome, if you get the microbiome Dr. Reddy was talking about, if you get that set, those bacteria, beneficial bacteria, fungi, yeast will do it for you. They bring in oxygenation, and none of the parasites can live. You see, they don't like oxygen. Let's face it. So again, and Dipti's favorite thing is we have a choice. We literally have a choice, and we can balance the homeostasis and the harmony of our body and the harmony of our lives, physically, neurologically, emotionally, and obviously spiritually. So, that's what I do in a lot. That's basically what we do, and from a very holistic point of view. And like you said, Dr. Reddy, the almost gold, that's got gazillions of electrons to share, but not in the physical form. It's in the alchemical form, and that brings in huge amounts of actually oxygen and rejuvenates the DNA and the immunity, and it charges the body. So those adrenals that are flat, let's bring in an energy capacitor. We have everything in front of us, to do that. So I know Dipti's been coming in and out. Sorry, Dipti. Dr. Reddy, any last words from yourself or on this matter before we go to Dipti?
Yeah, no, so listening to a lot of people that, the COVID virus is 40 to 70 nanometers in diameter. It's so small. And the science says that what cannot be seen cannot be destroyed, right? What cannot be seen cannot be destroyed. So we have to live around it, adapt ourselves around it. And I want to tell you a personal experience. In 2010, I had COVID too, myself, right? I developed antibodies. I recovered from it, but non-aggressively, right?
Yeah.
I was saying to you. So within yourself, and as Jane said about correct diet, correct oxygenation, correct breathing patterns, and everything. It's about within yourself to ensure that you can survive. So do not think that you're going to be in the so-called darkness. You're all in the light. And remember this, right? And you can survive and you'll do well. I think what Dipti is going to talk about diet and correlation of equipping your body, and what Jane spoke about oxygenation, I think it's a wonderful integration. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Reddy. I know your time's very valuable, and this has been invaluable. And I think, the reward is that the people take this information out and share it and sit in small groups. Have a small group of friends around and share the information. We're going to be putting the links out to all of you who have joined this evening. Replay it. And I always say to the practitioners and the affiliates, and that the more you educate, the more you can educate, and the more you remember. And the more then those people can educate and so on. And then we form these beautiful nodes of, pure energy, love, light, and power, and all those great things. So thanks a million. And we will do some more. And
yes, pleasure.
we're a really good team. Thanks, Dr. Reddy. So now we
Bye.
have
Take
a
care.
very